if you had some advice for somebody who is 6 to 12 months behind you, what would that advice be?
We touched on a lot of it, Brian. I would say, first of all, education. You've got to find someone that's knowledgeable, willing to share, that you connect with. And then once you do that, I would suggest getting a mentor. Even back in the residential business, when I first got started, I had a mentor and a coach. I think a mentor and a coach helps you accelerate your business, helps you avoid mistakes. You're still going to make mistakes, but they'll just help you get further quicker.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. Super excited for today's show. It's one of our first deal series episode. We got a great guy on the line. We got Scott Dilley, who recently closed on an 84-unit apartment complex in Tucson, Arizona. And even better, he lives about 10 miles from where I grew up in the Salt Lake City metro area. So that said, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Good to chat with you.
Yeah. And just for the listeners, we're going to take his bio. We're going to stick it in the show notes. So go ahead and if you want a little more information about him, hit up the show notes. But that said, Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little bit about your background and history, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I was born and raised in Australia. I've lived in Utah for the last 30 years. The last 15 years or so, I've been in real estate. Primarily fix and flip. I have a real estate brokerage here. And then, prior to that, I spent 5 years in the car business.
Nice. Now, your fix and flips, were they Salt Lake Valley area or were they elsewhere? Yeah,
so I fixed and flipped in multiple states. I've done stuff in Indiana, Michigan, Cleveland, Ohio, in the Midwest there. But primarily, we focused here in Salt Lake City.
Okay. Now, as far as the fix and flips, were you guys actually in there getting your hands dirty yourselves, or did you guys hire crews, or how did that work for you guys?
Yeah, so in the beginning, yes. I was the guy that would get the U-Haul truck, back it up to the front door, trash out the property, clean it up, paint a couple walls. It was a lot different back then to flip a property. And, I primarily focused on short sales. Primarily I was that guy. But then as things evolved and I started getting to more rehabbing, I'm not that talented and I can't swing a hammer. So we have a crew of people now that take care.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to be able to do that, but same as you, I'm not really that guy, I think it would take me several years to learn how to do it before I could actually start doing it. So I've always been fascinated with the idea. So tell us a little bit how that business grew and how you went from properties in your backyard to all over the country, almost Midwest and Intermountain West.
Yeah. So, I was in the car business looking, working lots of hours. I wanted out of that, found some education on real estate and, did my first deal while I was still at the car business. My boss at the time gave me an ultimatum. You need to do this or you need to leave. And I just so happened to be, focusing more on real estate. And so I told him, here's my 2 weeks notice, I'm out. And that kind of helped me make that shift. And then I explored other options in real estate because there's more than just one way to make money in real estate. And that's the nice thing about it. So, I started buying defaulted mortgages, notes, and those were the properties out in the Ohio, Michigan, Indiana area. And we did different strategies on those. We tried to get people to start paying again. If they didn't, then there's the foreclosure, then there's the rehabbing and selling. So we kind of took it through the whole process.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of ways. I like what you said. There's a lot of ways to make money in real estate, and everybody has a little different take. But buying the notes, being able to foreclose. I mean, in most cases, it's a win-win. I mean, if you can get past the fees to be able to get into that business, in most cases, it's a win-win. You buy a non-performing note, you either get it performing, or you're able to foreclose on the asset. Either way, you're making a little bit of money both directions. But so what got you interested in multifamily?
Fixing and flipping is great. Make some really good money in fixing and flipping. But it's to me it was always you finish one project and you need to find the next one. And so, and we had systems in place where we had a good deal flow and we sourced our own deals, but it was always, trying to find the next deal and rehabbing and, after time. And then, we take that chunk of money we'd make, and then we do buy and hold. So we're
Mhm.
building up a small rental portfolio. So, it always seemed like it was, then you had to deal with the rentals, and then it was, rentals in other states and dealing with those tenants. So
Yeah.
it just got to a point where we're like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this on a bigger scale instead of one at a time.
Yeah.
So we started looking at multifamily.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of a corny example, but I've always looked at multifamily as a, buy one, get one free, or buy a duplex, buy one, get one, buy a fiveplex, buy one, get four, so it's always a, buy one, get something free. It's roughly the same amount of work, to buy, maybe a 20plex as it is a single family home. I mean, it is more difficult, but it's not 20 times more difficult. So
Oh,
I think you found what numerous people that are in the multifamily industry right now found is that the profits scale, but the work doesn't, so it's a lot easier to get into a 50 unit or an 84 unit in your case than it is to buy 84 single family homes. But
absolutely. Yeah.
all right. So let's talk a little bit about, your motivation. It's something I like to call your big burning why. What's your motivation for being successful and for getting into multifamily?
So, this was a question I figured out when I started going through the fix and flips.
Mhm.
I met with a guy that I met with him for 2 days, and that meeting I thought it was going to be how to improve my business and do more flips.
Mhm.
But we spent 2 days on figuring out what my why is, which is, like you say, that's the burning desire, and that's what drives you to be successful.
Mhm.
And after 2 days, and it was a difficult process, because at first I'm like, yeah, I want to do X amount of flips every year, and I want to go spend time on the beach, and this is my
Yeah.
why, because I want to just hang out and not work,
And that's
right?
a what, not a why. That's what I
Yeah,
figured out. Yeah.
yeah. So my why is I like to give back,
Mhm.
and I like to help people. And so from that, he invited me to go on a trip to Haiti. So we went there and I met some people there. And then I came back and I was like, okay, this is how I can give back.
Mhm.
And real estate is a way for me to make good money that will allow me time and money to give back to the people in Haiti. So I formed a 501c. I have a
Mhm.
nonprofit called Children First. From that, we did a lot of work down in Haiti. We built an orphanage. We support families down there. We provide school, education, food. And
Mhm.
so that's my big why is I like to give back and I like to help people.
Yeah. Now, incidentally, I've spent a couple of days in Haiti, and it was shocking. It was really shocking to see how people lived. I mean, and this is after me having done combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and being in various places in Africa and Southeast Asia. When I went to Haiti, it was just completely different.
Yeah, it's
So wow, I mean, they need a lot of help, and happy to hear that you've done it. So if it's okay with you, can we put a link to your nonprofit in the show notes?
yeah. I mean, if you just want to give people my email, Brian,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
they can contact me if they want more information, and
All
I'm
right.
happy to talk with them one-on-one.
Perfect. So yeah, if you're interested in that, reach out to him and contact him. We'll have his email address in the show notes. But love the big burning why. It's something that I'd like to give back as well. And Haiti is something that I've seen up front and personal. Kind of pulls on the heartstrings a little bit. But
Yeah.
so let's shift gears a little bit. Wipe the eyes a little and talk about how you got into multifamily. So let's talk about education. There's a big education piece that I think a lot of people don't realize they have to hit. But even though you had a successful fix and flip business, how did you educate yourself about multifamily?
Yeah, so I started researching, and I wanted to find an educator. So I was online looking for people, looking for programs, and I was actually attended Michael Blank's Dealmaker Live 2 years ago. And at that event, I reconnected with Corey Peterson that I knew from a previous mastermind group in residential business,
Mhm.
in my fix and flip. So I met Corey Peterson there, and Corey told me he had an education piece going. So I looked into that, and that's where I decided to go with Corey at the time, and I joined Corey's mastermind. So that's kind of where I went for my education, was through Corey Peterson.
Nice. Yeah, and I met Corey Peterson at that same event, and been a fan of his ever since. So good guy, good program. Really like what he does. And one thing that sticks out in my mind with him is he talks about always, one hand up, one hand down. You're always helping somebody beneath you, and you're always receiving help from people who are ahead of you in the game. But great guy, great program, and I think that's something that a lot of people who get their first deal, they realize at some point that they need help, and whether it's a pay to play program or whether it's just a mentor relationship, everybody has to find help somewhere. And guys like Corey and Michael Blanc are out there, with education platforms. We're starting our own. We just started our own about a month ago that is doing the same thing. So you joined his program, you get in his mastermind, you start learning about it. Let's talk about getting the first deal. Can you tell us a little bit about how you found the deal and how you guys put that together?
Sure. So, there's a number of steps to that. And, part of that is getting educated. And you can attend, these masterminds and get coaches. And once you have that education, then you got to take action. So that was the next step. We're in the program, we're learning. And so now we need to take some action. So that first step is you got to reach out to brokers and you got to look at some deals. So we identified the markets. I contacted a broker in the Tucson, Arizona market, asked if he would take a meeting with us. He agreed to it. We flew to Tucson, met with him. And that particular morning, he brought 2 deals with him and shared those 2 deals with us. Wasn't what we were looking for. We went and toured one of the buildings after lunch, and then he brought a 3rd deal. And that particular deal, he had told us that it wasn't listed. He hasn't signed a listing agreement. It's a true off-market deal. And I know what people say about off-market. They're not really off-market. But we were the only people looking at that deal. And so that's how we found our first deal. And then it was, here's the numbers. And we tried to negotiate with that. But he basically said, okay, these are the terms. If you want it, this is what you need to do. That night we submitted the LOI.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this prior to, but it's very much a seller's market right now. So in a lot of cases, the seller gets to dictate the terms. There is a little bit of negotiation in a lot of deals, but for the most part, you're trying to meet the seller's expectations nowadays. But a couple of things you said there that I'll like to just hop back on is taking action. I think the take action step is huge. And I mean, you guys did a little bit more than call them on the phone. Now, was it you and your partner that flew down to Tucson, or just you?
Yeah, no, me and my partner, Valeska. So there's both, 2 of us are in that own Greenstone Capital together.
Okay, so the 2 of you hopped on a plane, flew to Tucson to meet the broker, which is taking some massive action. I mean, a lot of people will try to do things over email and telephone, but the fact that you would fly down to Tucson to meet with the broker probably says to the broker, these guys are serious, which is something that you take action and good things happen afterwards is really how I've seen things work a lot. So 84 unit true off market. The other thing I'd like to focus on is you guys put in an LOI the night you guys got the property shown to you.
Yep.
What did it take to go from here's the property to LOI in a matter of hours?
Well, we knew Tucson was a hot market. We knew we were getting the first look at this deal, and we underwrote it, and the numbers made sense. And so, if the numbers made sense, then we got to make an offer. So we tried to negotiate with the broker, but there was no negotiating. It was his terms. And being a licensed real estate broker myself, that was hard for me to swallow.
Yeah.
Where there's no negotiating.
But
we didn't realize it either, Brian. We found out after the fact that this particular broker in Tucson is like the #1 broker in multifamily in Tucson. Everybody knows him. He's the #1 guy there.
Yeah. So, I mean, literally, he could have taken this deal to any number of people, and since he had he hadn't signed it yet, is what you said, but since he was just getting ready to sign, you guys being there and you putting the LOI in a matter of hours is what got you that deal. If you guys would have twiddled your thumbs for, a couple of days or a couple of weeks, he would have shopped that out to, his top 5 or his top 10. And if the numbers worked for you guys, it would have worked for one of those guys, and you guys never would have got that. So, I mean, peeling the onion a little bit on this one and going layer by layer, you guys took massive action. You flew down to Tucson to meet the broker. Number one, really good thing. And then you were quick, quick to pull a trigger. You saw this deal, underwrote it, and within a couple hours, you had an LOI in. That's really what got you guys the deal there. So,
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So let's talk about, once you got the deal under contract, a couple of things from here. How much did you guys have to raise for the deal?
So yeah, once we underwrote it, we had to raise 3.3 million, which was scary on the first deal.
That's a big number for a first deal. It really is. Our first deal was like 1.8, and we scrambled to hit there. So let's talk about the capital raise, how you guys split it up, and how that worked out for you guys.
Yeah, so we split the deal with Corey, our mentor. He came in, we gave him 51% of the deal. And so with that, he raised half and we raised half. And then that half was up to my business partner to raise. And so, she really took charge on that, and that was her responsibility for raising the capital. And raising the capital, the first go around, it was all friends and family.
Yeah, I think that's very, very common of a lot of groups, is the first go around is friends and family. And when you start looking for your second deal, a lot of people ask the question, or, ask themselves, okay, I've tapped out my friends and family. How do I raise for my second deal? And that's probably the biggest challenge between deal number one and deal number two is, you have to go back to the well to drink, so to speak, and sometimes if your friends and family have been tapped out already, you got to find a new well. So,
Yep.
I know we talked a little bit. I know you got a plan for that, and you got it, hopefully figured out. But that's always a challenge there. Let's talk about the loan. Tell us about the loan process. What type of lending you guys pursued and how that turned out.
Yeah. So that was obviously the reason we brought Corey in, was to sign on the loan, his assets. So we signed on the loan with Corey, and then we paid the $12,000 application fee. We got the terms for the loan, and then they started looking at the asset. And once they started looking at the asset, they gave us some more guidelines as far as, they didn't want X amount of students in there. And then they came back and said, because of COVID and the uncertainty, we're going to look at anyone that's 60 days delinquent. We're going to count that as a vacant unit. And unfortunately, at the time, once we went under contract, the property manager took a leave of absence and never came back. Great timing on the seller's part.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that I imagine your vacancy ticked up a little bit. Just because
so the delinquencies went up. Yeah, the delinquencies went up. No property manager to be on top of it. So the bank came back and said, deal's off, after we paid a $12,000 app fee. So that was about 6 weeks into the process. We, at 60 days, we had to do another 100,000 non-refundable. And so at this point, we've got 100,000 on the line. In about another 10 days, we're putting another 100,000 on the line to stay in the deal. And now we have to scramble and find another loan. So yeah, we ended up going with a bridge loan, and those terms changed and obviously cost us more money. So that was one of the big hurdles in the beginning.
Yeah, and that's something that the lender is your biggest partner in anything you do. It's one of those things. They're bringing 60, 70, 80% of the capital to the table, and unfortunately, they dictate terms too. They're going to be extremely conservative on their numbers to make sure that obviously they don't lose. But we've had similar situations where we've had to shop for new lenders, or where lenders come and they change the terms last minute. One thing that we've learned is we now underwrite, if the lender originally tells us they're giving us 75% proceeds, we'll underwrite everything at 70, or if they say 80, we're underwriting at 75, so if they tell us, 3.5%, we're underwriting at 4, because we've learned that those terms change over the course of the, two or so months that you have the property under contract. But
our loan to value went from 75 to 70. We underwrote it at 75, and then we underwrote it at a 4% interest rate, which we thought was conservative. And once we went to a bridge loan, it was 5.5. So those were some big changes.
Yeah, and it affects everything downhill. Now, I mean, the nice thing about the bridge is, a year from now, you could probably refinance back into an agency loan and get the same type of of rates or better rates. If you were to refinance now, you'd actually get better rates than that 4%. But
yeah, so it changed our business model on that particular asset. So now the plan, instead of a 5-year exit for our investors, with 2-year bridge loan with a 1-year option to extend. The game plan now is to try and, we're going to rehab as many as we can, hopefully all 84, but that probably won't happen.
Yep.
In that 2 to 3 year time period, go to permanent financing, and at that point, repay the investors their capital.
Yeah, and that way you guys don't have to worry about the refinance. You just, you use the loan terms, and that's something that we're also very cognizant of, is the loan has to fit the business plan. And if you get a different loan term, you either change your business plan or it's not going to work. It's like round peg, square hole. So I think what you guys did was smart. You went from 5-year hold to a 3-year hold to match the loan terms, but you still have a little bit of flexibility there, because you can still refinance if at that point into something either more permanent or even take out another bridge debt. So lots of options there. Now, how did you guys handle that with your investors?
So the PPM is a 5-year commitment. And so we just left it at a 5-year commitment, knowing that more than likely we're going to, hopefully, if we execute the plan, they'll be repaid early. And a lot of our friends and family, it's their first time investing. And so our thought process is, if we can return their money early, they'll see that as a win. I know with experienced investors, they want their money out there earning interest. But being our first deal and our friends and family investing for the first time, I think they'll see that as a positive thing, where they got their money back early.
Yeah. And I think you guys spun that right. It's if you're going from a 5 to a 3, you don't really need to change the PPM, because the way the PPM is usually written is you guys have the option to sell early. So anything past that becomes a little more difficult. All right. So let's talk about any other hitches in the closing process before you guys got. So you went to the bridge loan. Any other hitches before you guys closed?
Yeah, just a small one. 2 days before closing, so we did another extension, which cost us another $50,000. So now we're in the 250
$250,000. Yep.
And 2 days before the settlement deadline, we have no more extensions on the line, and it's a Friday. So on a Wednesday, we find out that the insurance was not underwritten correctly. The previous property manager, somehow the insurance underwrote it under their umbrella policy. Well, we're not part of their company, and we found this out 2 days beforehand. So it's not like a residential insurance. You just call somebody else and you get another insurance quote. This is something I learned. It takes time. And so the broker called and said, if you guys don't close on time, then the seller's probably going to want additional money, which pissed me off. But they did say, okay, we'll give you till Monday. So we're supposed to close Friday was our deadline. We'll give you till Monday to get it closed. If you don't close Monday, you don't have any more extensions, then the seller's going to ask for more money, basically increase the price of the property. So luckily we got it closed Friday afternoon. So it was a scramble to get that done too, but we got it done.
Yeah, insurance is a piece that, man, it can be difficult. We've had our own problems with our insurance vendors before, but we had one, and this really upset us. We thought everything was done well. We paid the insurance carrier at closing, so we wrote them a check, and it was a substantial check. 2 weeks later, we get an email saying that the policy never went into effect. So we had like two weeks of uninsured time because somebody made a mistake on that one. We weren't happy. Fortunately, there's no claims in that 2 weeks. We weren't happy. The bank wasn't happy, but got rectified. So that insurance, it's you got to take care of everything. You really do. It's one of those where everything is important, and you just got to make sure that you got all the loose ends tied up in pretty little bows before you get to that closing table. So let's talk real quick. How's the deal gone since you guys closed, and tell me a little bit about the how you guys are managing the asset.
Yeah. So on the day of closing on Friday, our property management team was there to take over. A week later, we flew back down there to the property to meet the property manager that was on site. So we have an on-site property manager. We have an on-site maintenance guy that lives on the property. So we went back there and introduced ourselves and just spent some time talking with the property manager, getting to know her. And just, it was our first time meeting her. And we just asked some questions to see if she was on top of her stuff.
Yeah.
She was, she was familiar with the property after a week. She gave us some good data. She answered the questions. So she was on top of her stuff. And so we were happy with that. And then we talked with our property management company, and they're putting together a plan right now to execute, to go in and start rehabbing well, the nice thing about it too is we only had 3 vacant units at closing, and all 3 of those, 1 has already been filled, 2 have people moving in. So we don't have any vacant units now to rehab. And I think we have 1 moving out at the end of this month.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's great. And one thing you told me prior to that I'd like to just bring up is you leveraged your partner and your partner's relationships with the property management. You're using the same firm that Corey Peterson uses for his properties in Arizona, correct?
Yeah. So that was a nice thing with partnering with Corey was he did introduce us to his team, and and we built relationships with those key players, and so we have good relationships with them going forward too. Solid,
good. All right. So couple closing questions. First one, what's next for you?
Well, we're working on our next deal. That's it, right? So with our first deal under our belt, we're moving away from the fix and flip business. I would like to be done with that. And I think, when we get our next deal, that's the thing is we got the first deal. It's like, where's the next deal going to come from? So we're out there doing the same thing, contacting brokers, scheduling meetings in person. We actually flew back to Tucson and we met with the property manager last week. We set up meetings with another 2 brokers in that area that will be able to source some deals for us. And we had good meetings with those guys. So we're going to focus on Tucson to get a second deal there. And we'll also be exploring some other markets in and around, north of Salt Lake.
Nice. So another question that I love on these first deal episodes, if you had some advice for somebody who is 6 to 12 months behind you, what would that advice be?
We touched on a lot of it, Brian. I would say, first of all, education. You've got to find someone that's knowledgeable, willing to share, that you connect with, because there's a lot of educators out there, and there's good and bad guys. And for me, it was really finding someone that I could connect with and I felt comfortable with and had good information. And then once you do that, I would suggest getting a mentor. Even back in the residential business, when I first got started, I had a mentor and a coach. I think a mentor and a coach helps you accelerate your business, helps you avoid mistakes. You're still going to make mistakes, but they'll just help you get further quicker. So education, mentor, and then take action. You can be educated, your mentor can tell you what to do, but if you do nothing, nothing's going to happen. So you've got to take some action. Talk to people.
All right. I love it. Education, mentorship, taking action. I think that's a recipe for success in multifamily and probably just about anything there is. All right. Last question. How can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in getting in contact with me, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to communicate. And then, if we want to get on a call, if they want to talk, I'll be happy to chat with them.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Very much appreciate it. Learned a lot. It was great getting to know you a little better, and wish you the best of luck on deal number 2.
Hey, Brian, appreciate your time.